Okay, Michael, what you want to do, this one's already installed. We already installed it for the last video for you. But measure out this from here to the end of the threads, about 1/2 inch. We have about 1/4 inch here. Do that evenly on both sides. What you want to do is set the strut bar in and just gauge it with your eyes, because this is at an angle. It's not straight, it's at a slightly angle. This bolt should slide right through the longer bolt I provided you with freely. It shouldn't be stiff, it shouldn't be binding these up. What you need to do is just, when you get one through, slowly just turn one of these, 1/4 of a turn or a full turn on the heim in or out to line these holes up. What I would do on your car, since it's already a simple car, is I would jack up the rear end from the rear jack points, take off the rear tires, maybe put a jack stand right underneath your support bar on both sides. And then what I would do is put a microfiber towel or a piece of cardboard or a piece of wood right below this shock mount, so it doesn't scratch your chassis when you take off the upper bolt. So the shock's gonna drop down because it's hooked down there. So what you're gonna wanna do is this strut bar, we put it on one side like this, and then we swing it down and then pop the other bolt through. Other than that, depending on what type of hose you want to use, you can just use push lock hose. You can buy this at any hose store. Summit Racing sells it. You can do braided AN fittings and change these out to AN fittings. I think yours has plugs right there, so you're gonna have to get a barb that goes in there. All of them are different, so we don't supply this piece because every single Subaru engine is kind of set up differently depending on the year. But other than that, it should look like this, minus the zinc coating on these bolts got all screwed up. We had a leak in our sealing, so we got to replace those. But it's going to go bolt washer, Delrin. It's your Delrin bushing. It's a self-lubricating hard plastic that will last millions of years. You got a spacer washer here, and then these little inserts from your shocks. Spacer washer, Delrin, washer, nut. Sometimes you don't need this Delrin or this Delrin. Sometimes it's just a washer, but you want to space it so these aren't binding up. See how this is in an angle right here? This is an angle versus the gap here. So it's at a slight taper. So that's what ours looks like on the ends. And they're about the same on both ends here. Yeah, we gotta replace these fittings. They got all ruined in our leaky sealing here. But yeah, that's what it looks like. And it should be the same on the other cars. All of our cars, they're pretty close. If you look at this, they're all pretty much the same. On this strut bar, it's the same. But if you notice, it's got a washer right here instead of a Delrin bushing, because they're slightly gonna be different depending on how you adjust. You can actually get both Delrins in there. You could actually get black in there. I gave you extra washers in case, but you can actually get black and black in there. It's just on how you space this. Like, see this side, the gap here is a little less than 1/4 inch, and it's a little bit more of 1/2 inch versus this side. You see, if you count the threads, you can count them. It's less. That's a little bit more, and that's a little less. So, anyways, I hope that helps. We don't really have. I got 6 cars in production line right now, but all of them have the strut bar on it with the engine already in and the suspension already on. So give me a call, 480-404-1117. Michael, if you have any questions whatsoever. But yeah, remember to put a block of wood or a towel or just take a piece of cardboard, like a shipping box, cut it in half, fold it up, and stick it down. Hold on, let me show you my phone there. Stick it down right here between your chassis and the bottom of this trailing arm mount point, because you don't want to set the suspension and just gouge your powder coat right here. So make sure you do that. These shocks are a little bit different than your shocks. They're a little bit shorter. This is made for a really slam-lowered car, so they look a little different. But you can definitely, what I sometimes do is I get a screwdriver, like a Phillips screwdriver, stick it through, and I'll adjust this and hold this shock in while I'm putting the bolt on the other side. and that will just, you can just gauge it, but you should be able to eyeball, and sometimes you might have to just tap this with just use a little mallet, tap this through, but you shouldn't put too much force on these heims. It should slide right through. Sometimes you want to put a little bit of super lube or a lithium grease or graphite on there to help it go through, slide right in, but yep. All right, Michael, give me a call if you have any questions.